They say that blood is thicker than water. This means that family is the most important thing, and that you should always trust your family more than anyone else. But I have learned that sometimes blood can be poison. Sometimes the person who shares your last name is the person who will hurt you the most. When money and power are on the table, family loyalty can disappear like smoke in the wind. This is a story about betrayal. It is a story about two brothers who walked two very different paths. I would like to ask you, do you think money can destroy a family? Please share your honest thoughts in the comments. My name is Peter, and I built a kingdom that my brother stole. My father, Mr. Sterling, started Sterling Construction 40 years ago. He was a strong, honest man with rough hands and a big heart. He started with one truck and a shovel. Over the years, he built it into the biggest construction company in the state. We built schools, hospitals, and homes for families. My father taught me everything. From the time I was a little boy, I was at the construction sites. I learned how to mix cement. I learned how to lay bricks. I learned how to read the complex blueprints. I loved the work. I loved the smell of sawdust and the sound of machines. I did not want to be just a boss in an office. I wanted to understand the work. I went to university to study engineering, and then I came back to the company. I started at the bottom, just like my father wanted. I worked my way up, year by year. I earned the respect of the workers because I worked beside them. I knew their names. I knew their families. I was one of them. Then there was my younger brother, James. James was different. He did not like the dust or the noise of the construction sites. He liked expensive suits, fast cars, and fancy parties. He went to business school, but he spent more time at nightclubs than in the library. He was charming. He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to smile and make people like him. But he did not know how to build a wall. He did not know the value of hard work. My father loved us both, but he worried about James. He saw that James was lazy. He saw that James loved money, but not the work that created the money. He always told me, "Peter, you are the rock. You are the foundation. When I am gone, you will lead this company. You will keep it safe." 5 years ago, my father got sick. It was a long, slow illness. I took over the daily operations of the company. I worked 18-hour days. I made sure the projects were finished on time. I made sure the workers were paid. The company continued to grow and be successful because of my hard work. James? He was rarely there. He would come to the office at noon, drink a coffee, flirt with the secretaries, and leave at 3 p.m. to play golf. He was the vice president, but it was just a title. He did nothing. When my father finally passed away, it was the saddest day of my life. I lost my father, my mentor, and my best friend. I was heartbroken. But I also felt a heavy responsibility. I had to keep his legacy alive. I had to protect the company. Everyone knew I was going to be the new CEO. It was my father's wish. It was the logical choice. The week after the funeral, the board of directors called a special meeting to appoint the new CEO. I walked into the boardroom wearing my black suit, feeling sad but ready. I had my plans for the future of the company in a folder. I was ready to lead. James was there too. He was wearing a new, very expensive suit. He was smiling. It was a strange smile. It was not the smile of a grieving son. It was the smile of a cat that had just caught a mouse. The chairman of the board, Mr. Black, stood up. He looked uncomfortable. "We are here to decide the future of Sterling Construction," he said. "As you know, Peter has been running the operations for the past year." I nodded. I waited for him to say my name as the new CEO, but Mr. Black continued. "However," he said, and the room went cold, "James has presented us with a new document. A document signed by your father, 3 days before he died." I was shocked. "What document?" I asked. "My father was in a coma 3 days before he died." James slid a paper across the long table. "He woke up, Peter," James said smoothly. "He had a moment of clarity, and he realized that the company needs a modern leader, a businessman, not a construction worker." I looked at the paper. It was a letter, supposedly from my father, appointing James as the new CEO. The signature. It looked like my father's, but it was shaky. It looked wrong. "This is a lie," I whispered. "He didn't write this." "The handwriting expert says it is real," James said, his voice cold and confident. "And the board agrees. We need growth. We need profit. And I have a plan to double our profits in 1 year." He looked at the board members. They were greedy men. They liked the sound of double profits. They didn't care about building good schools. They cared about their own pockets. Mr. Black looked at me. "The board has voted, Peter. James is the new CEO." I stood up. "You are making a mistake," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "He doesn't know the business. He will destroy it." James stood up too. He buttoned his expensive jacket. "That is enough, Peter," he said. "As the new CEO, I have to make some difficult decisions. And my first decision is about you." He paused, enjoying the moment. "We don't need two leaders. And you are too stuck in the past. You are fired, Peter. Pack your things. Security will escort you out." I could not breathe. My brother. My own brother. He had forged a letter. He had manipulated the greedy board. And he had just stolen my father's company and fired me from the only life I had ever known. I looked at him, and I saw a stranger. A cruel, greedy stranger. I walked out of that building, the building my father built, with nothing but a box of my personal things and a heart full of burning betrayal. Walking out of that building was like walking out of my own skin. I stood on the sidewalk holding my box of personal things, a photo of my father, a few awards, my favorite pen. I looked up at the sign, Sterling Construction. It was my name, but it didn't belong to me anymore. My brother had stolen my legacy, my past, and my future in one single afternoon. The first month was a dark fog. I was angry. I was depressed. I thought about suing James. I talked to lawyers. But James was clever. He had the best lawyers money could buy. They told me it would take years and millions of dollars to prove the letter was a fake. I didn't have millions. James had cut off my access to the company accounts. I had my savings, but they wouldn't last forever against a giant corporation. I watched from the outside as James changed everything. He fired the old, loyal workers who had been with my father for 20 years. He said they were too expensive. He hired cheap subcontractors who did fast, sloppy work. He started using cheaper materials. He stopped building schools and hospitals for the community. He started building luxury condos for the rich. He was making a lot of money very quickly. The board was happy. James was the king of the city. He bought a new Ferrari. He was on the cover of magazines. "The new face of Sterling Construction," the headlines said. I felt sick. He was destroying the reputation my father had built over 40 years. He was trading quality for quick cash. I knew it wouldn't last. You cannot build a strong house on a weak foundation. But everyone else was blinded by the gold. I had to make a choice. I could stay angry. I could watch him and be bitter. Or I could do what my father taught me. I could work. I didn't want to work for another big company. I was tired of suits and boardrooms. I missed the dust. I missed the feeling of creating something real. So, I did something crazy. I bought an old, rusty pickup truck. I bought some basic tools, and I started my own company. I called it Peter's Repairs. It was humble. I wasn't building skyscrapers. I was fixing leaky roofs. I was repairing broken fences. I was renovating small kitchens for grandmothers. It was hard work. My back ached every night. My hands were covered in calluses again, but I was happy. I was honest. People in the town remembered me. They remembered that I was the son who worked, not the son who played. They started to call me. "Peter, can you fix my porch?" "Peter, the school roof is leaking and Sterling Construction is asking for too much money." I worked hard. I did good work. I didn't cut corners. I used good wood. I stayed until the job was perfect. Word of mouth spread. "If you want it done fast, call Sterling," people said. "If you want it done right, call Peter." Slowly, my small business grew. I hired 2 of the old workers James had fired. They were so happy to work with me again. We were a small team, but we were proud. We had integrity. 1 year later, a big storm hit the city. It was a terrible hurricane. Trees fell, windows broke, and roofs were torn off. The city was in chaos. And then, the news broke. The new luxury condos that James had built, the ones made with cheap materials, they were falling apart. The roofs were leaking water into the expensive apartments. The balconies were cracking. The rich people who bought them were furious. They were suing Sterling Construction. At the same time, the local children's hospital, which my father had built 20 years ago, was damaged by the wind. A large part of the roof had collapsed. It was an emergency. The hospital administrator called James. "We need help immediately," she said. "The roof is gone. We have sick children here." James, the businessman, looked at the numbers. He saw that the hospital job would be difficult, dangerous, and not very profitable. He was busy trying to save his luxury condos and his own reputation. He told the hospital, "I am sorry, we are fully booked. We cannot help you for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, with a hole in the roof. The hospital administrator called me. She was crying. "Peter," she said, "I know you are small, but we have no one else. Can you help us?" I looked at my small team. I looked at our old trucks. It was a huge job. It was dangerous. But I thought about my father. I thought about what Sterling used to mean. "Yes," I said. "We will be there in 1 hour." We worked for 3 days straight. We didn't sleep. We worked in the rain and the wind. We covered the roof. We fixed the structure. We made the hospital safe for the children. We didn't do it for money. We did it because it was the right thing to do. The local news crews came to the hospital. They wanted to film the disaster. But instead, they filmed a small team of tired, dirty men saving the building. The reporter recognized me. "Are you Peter Sterling?" she asked, putting a microphone in my face. "The brother of James Sterling?" I wiped the rain and dirt from my face. "I am Peter," I said. "Just Peter." "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why isn't the big Sterling company here?" I looked at the camera. I didn't shout. I didn't look angry. I just spoke the truth. "Because my brother is busy building profits," I said. "But my team? We are busy building a community. My father taught me that you don't turn your back on people who need help. That is what a builder does." That interview went viral. Everyone saw it. They saw the contrast, the greedy brother in his suit hiding from his mistakes, and the hardworking brother in his muddy clothes saving the hospital. The tide was turning. The city was waking up. And James was about to learn that his house of cards was shaking. The interview changed everything. It was like a light was turned on in a dark room. The people of the city finally saw the truth. They saw that Sterling Construction was just a name, but the values of my father lived in me, not in the big glass building. The next few weeks were a disaster for my brother. The video of me standing in the rain, covered in mud but speaking the truth, was everywhere. The people who bought the luxury condos were angry. They started a huge lawsuit against the company. The city inspectors checked the buildings and found cheap, dangerous materials. They shut down James's construction sites. The company's stock price crashed. It fell down like a stone in water. My phone, however, did not stop ringing, but it was not for small repairs anymore. The mayor called. He wanted me to fix the city library. The school principal called. She wanted me to build the new gymnasium. People didn't want the big fancy company. They wanted the honest builder. My small team of 5 men grew to 50. We were busy, we were tired, and we were proud. One Tuesday morning, I received a phone call. It was Mr. Black, the chairman of the board, the man who had fired me. His voice was not cold and powerful anymore. It sounded old and tired. "Peter," he said, "can you come to the office? We have an emergency. We need to talk." I drove my old truck to the headquarters. I walked into the lobby. The receptionist, who used to look at me with pity, now smiled at me with respect. "They are waiting for you in the boardroom, Mr. Sterling," she said. I walked into the room where I had been fired 2 years ago. The long table was the same. The expensive chairs were the same. But the people were different. The board members looked pale and scared. And James was sitting at the end of the table. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes were red. He was not the arrogant king anymore. He was a man who had lost everything. Mr. Black stood up. "Thank you for coming, Peter," he said. "I will be direct. The company is dying. We are almost bankrupt. The lawsuits, the bad reputation, no one wants to work with us. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake." James hit the table with his fist. "It wasn't a mistake," he shouted. His voice was desperate. "It was bad luck. The hurricane, the inspectors, they are all against me. And Peter, he humiliated me on TV." Mr. Black looked at James with disgust. "Be quiet, James. You humiliated yourself. You cut corners. You lied. You forged that letter from your father, didn't you?" The room went silent. James looked down. He didn't answer. The truth was finally out. The board knew. They had probably known for a long time, but as long as James was making money, they didn't care. Now that the money was gone, they suddenly cared about the truth. Mr. Black turned back to me. "Peter, we want you back. We want you to be the CEO. We will fire James. We will give you your old salary. We need you to save the company. You are the only one the city trusts." I looked at them. I looked at these men in their expensive suits. They thought they could just snap their fingers and I would come running back. They thought I was just an employee they could hire and fire. I looked at James. He looked at me with hate in his eyes. "Go ahead," he spat. "Take it. You always wanted to be Daddy's favorite." I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the city my father had helped build. I thought about my small team. I thought about the hard work. I thought about integrity. I turned back to the table. "No," I said. The board members gasped. "No?" Mr. Black asked. "But it is your father's company." "No, it isn't," I said, calm key. "You destroyed my father's company. You sold its soul for quick money. The name Sterling Construction means nothing now. It means greed. It means bad work." I leaned forward, placing my rough working hands on the polished table. "I don't want a job. I don't want a salary. I have my own company now. Peter's Repairs. It is small, but it is honest. It has a good name." "But Peter," Mr. Black pleaded, "we have assets. We have machines. We have land. If we go bankrupt, it all goes away. The legacy dies." I looked at them. I knew they were desperate. They needed me more than I needed them. And I knew what I had to do. Not for them, but for my father. "I will not come back as an employee," I said. "I will not work for this board, and I will certainly not work with James." "Then what do you want?" Mr. Black asked. "I want to buy the company," I said. James laughed, a crazy, high-pitched laugh. "You? Buy us? You are a handyman. You don't have the money." "I don't have millions in cash," I said, "but I have something more valuable. I have trust. The banks won't lend you $1 right now, but they called me yesterday. They are willing to back me." I looked at the board. "Here is my offer. I will buy the assets of Sterling Construction. The trucks, the tools, the land, I will buy them for a fair price, enough to pay off your immediate debts and stop the lawsuits. But the name stays with me, and the leadership goes. All of you, you resign. Today." I looked at James. "Especially you, brother." The room was silent. It was a hostile takeover, but it was the only way to save the ship from sinking. They looked at each other. They looked at the falling stock numbers on the screen. They knew they had no choice. Mr. Black sighed. He looked defeated. "Okay, Peter," he said. "We accept." James stood up. He was shaking. "You can't do this," he screamed. "I am the CEO. I am the heir." "You were never the heir, James," I said softly. "You were just a thief. And now you are trespassing. Please leave my building." Watching my brother leave the building was not a happy moment. It was a tragedy. James screamed. He shouted that it wasn't fair.
He shouted that he would sue me. But deep down, he knew the truth. He knew that he hadn't built anything. He had only taken. 2 security guards, the same guards who had watched me leave with my box 2 years ago, escorted him out. They didn't look at him with respect. They looked at him with the tired eyes of people who had seen too much greed. When the door finally closed behind him, the boardroom was quiet. The board members signed the resignation papers.
They collected their briefcases and left one by one. They were rich men, but they walked out looking poor in spirit. I was alone in the room. I walked to the head of the table. I sat in the chair my father used to sit in. For a long time, I just breathed. The air felt different. It didn't smell like fear and money anymore. It smelled like opportunity. I looked at my hands. They were rough, scarred, and dirty from work. They were not the hands of a typical CEO. But they were the right hands for this job. The next morning, I did not come to work in a suit. I came in my work boots and a clean shirt. I called a meeting of the entire company. Every secretary, every accountant, every project manager. They gathered in the lobby looking nervous. They thought I was going to fire them. They thought I was going to be angry. I stood on a small platform. "Hello, everyone," I said. "My name is Peter Sterling. I am a carpenter, and I am your new boss." I told them the plan. It was going to be hard. We had to fix the broken buildings James had built. We had to apologize to the clients. We had to work long hours to pay off the debts. "I cannot promise you big bonuses this year," I told them honestly, "but I can promise you this. We will never lie again. We will never cut corners again. We will build things that last. We will build things we are proud of." I looked at their faces. I saw relief. I saw hope. People want to be proud of their work. James didn't understand that. He thought people only worked for money, but I knew they worked for pride. The next 3 years were the hardest of my life. We worked 7 days a week. We went back to the luxury condos and fixed every roof, every crack at our own cost. It cost us millions, but it bought us something money can't buy: forgiveness. The city saw that we were trying. The city saw that Sterling meant honest again. My small team from Peter's Repairs merged with the big company. It was funny to see. My old friends in their dusty overalls teaching the young engineers in suits how to really look at a wall. They taught them that a computer design is perfect, but real wood is not. They taught them to respect the materials. The culture of the company changed. It became a family again. One day, I was visiting a construction site. We were building a new library for the university. I was wearing my hard hat, looking at the plans. A man walked by on the sidewalk. He looked familiar. He was wearing a cheap coat, and he looked older, tired. It was James. He saw me. He stopped. We looked at each other through the chain-link fence. There was no glass wall between us this time, just the fence and a whole world of different choices. I walked over to the fence. "Hello, James," I said. He looked at the busy construction site. He looked at the sign that said Sterling Construction. He looked at me. "You did it," he said. His voice was hollow. "You saved it." "We saved it," I corrected him. "The team saved it." "I lost everything," James said quietly. "The Ferrari, the penthouse, the friends. When the money stopped, the friends stopped calling." He looked down at his shoes. They were old. "I guess Father was right. You were the rock." I felt a pang of sadness. He was still my brother. "It is never too late to start over, James," I said. "But you have to start at the bottom. You have to learn the work." I pointed to a pile of bricks near the gate. "We need people to move those bricks. It is hard work. It pays minimum wage, but it is honest." James looked at the bricks. He looked at his soft hands. He looked at me. For a moment, I thought he might say yes. I thought he might grab a pair of gloves and join us, but he shook his head. "I can't," he whispered. "I'm not like you, Peter." He turned and walked away. He walked down the street, disappearing into the city crowd. He was still looking for the easy way. He hadn't learned. And that was the true tragedy. He was poor, not because he had no money, but because he had no purpose. I went back to work. I climbed the scaffolding to the roof. I looked out over the city. I saw the schools we had built. I saw the hospital we had saved. I saw the homes where families were eating dinner. My father built this company with a shovel. James tried to build it with lies. I built it back up with sweat and truth. I usurped nothing. I stole nothing. I simply picked up the tools that my brother dropped. I learned that a title like CEO means nothing if you don't earn it every day. The real position of power isn't in the corner office. It is standing right here next to your team, with dust on your boots and a clear conscience. My name is Peter Sterling. I am a builder. And finally, the house is strong. If this story about integrity and hard work inspired you, please give this video a like. Do you believe that hard work always wins in the end? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more emotional English stories about life's challenges and victories, please be sure to follow our channel.